Long before drugs were illegal, medical, or controversial, they were simply part of being human. Plants, roots, fungi, resins. From the very beginning, humans experimented with altered states, not out of recklessness, but out of necessity, to reduce pain, to stay awake, to endure hunger, to understand what could not be explained with words alone. These substances were never separate from life. They were woven into survival, healing, ritual, and meaning-making. And that matters because it changes how we understand the relationship between humans and drugs today. This is not just a story about addiction. It's a story about why humans have always searched for ways to alter their experience of reality. And to understand that, we have to go back far before laws, labels, and moral judgments existed. In the earliest human societies, altered states were not seen as dangerous or deviant. They were tools. Archaeological evidence suggests that hunter-gatherer groups experimented with psychoactive plants tens of thousands of years ago. Nightshade plants like henbane, mandrake, and datura appear repeatedly in early ritual contexts across different regions. One of the clearest examples comes from a Bronze Age burial cave on Minorca, dating to around 1600 BCE. Chemical analysis of human hair revealed long-term, repeated consumption of multiple psychoactive substances. This wasn't accidental poisoning, it was intentional, structured use. In these societies, drugs were not entertainment. They were used to heal the sick, guide initiations, mark life transitions, and communicate with forces experienced as larger than the individual. Altered states were not an escape from reality. They were a way of understanding it. As agriculture developed and cities emerged, the role of drugs began to change but not disappear. In ancient Egypt, opium was widely cultivated and used for pain relief, sleep, and possibly ritual purposes. Modern chemical analysis of alabaster vessels confirms the presence of morphine and related alkaloids, suggesting systematic use rather than rare experimentation. Alongside opium, the blue lotus flower was consumed for its calming and mildly euphoric effects. It appears repeatedly in tomb paintings and ceremonial scenes, closely associated with rebirth, pleasure, and the afterlife. In Mesopotamia, the poppy was known as the joy plant. Medical texts already described dosage, preparation, and effects. Here, drugs became tools of both healing and hierarchy. Access was controlled. Knowledge was specialized. These experiences were no longer available to everyone equally. They became embedded in power structures. In ancient Greece, altered states were formalized in a different way. The Eleusinian mysteries, practiced for nearly 2,000 years, centered around a sacred drink known as kykeon. Many scholars believe it contained psychoactive compounds derived from ergot fungus. Participants described overwhelming visions, emotional purification, and the loss of fear of death. Attendants included philosophers, generals, and political leaders. These experiences were not considered madness. They were considered education. At the same time, the Roman world normalized substances like opium, cannabis, and alcohol as everyday tools. They were available in markets and prescribed by physicians. The line between ritual and routine slowly began to blur. What's striking is that this wasn't a uniquely European development. Across continents, cultures independently discovered psychoactive substances and integrated them into their social systems. In Mesoamerica, the Maya and Aztecs consumed psilocybin mushrooms, peyote, and psychoactive cacao mixtures in rites of passage, healing ceremonies, and priestly initiation. In South America, coca leaves were chewed for thousands of years to reduce hunger, fatigue, and altitude sickness. Use was regulated, ritualized, and socially integrated. In Central Africa, iboga was used in initiation rituals lasting several days, inducing intense visions meant to confront trauma, identity, and mortality. In East Asia, cannabis was burned, ingested, and used medicinally long before modern classifications existed. Different plants, same human impulse. In Northern Europe, altered states were closely tied to nature, power, and identity. Celtic druids used mistletoe, fly agaric mushrooms, and nightshade plants in ritual contexts related to prophecy, healing, and poetic inspiration. Knowledge was symbolic, oral, and closely guarded. In Viking cultures, alcohol structured social and religious life. Mead and beer were consumed in rituals, feasts, and funerary ceremonies. There is evidence suggesting possible use of psychoactive plants like Amanita muscaria in berserker traditions, though definitive proof remains debated. What matters is the pattern. Intoxication was linked to courage, trance, and transformation. A controlled loss of the ordinary self was not weakness, it was power. This relationship began to shift dramatically in medieval Europe. With the rise of centralized religious authority, psychoactive knowledge became dangerous. Herbal practices survived among healers, midwives, and those later labeled as witches. Ointments made from nightshade plants induced vivid hallucinations, including sensations of flight. What had once been interpreted as spiritual experience was reframed as heresy. Drug use did not disappear. It went underground. Fear replaced ritual. Control replaced knowledge. The next major shift came with global trade. Substances that had once been local, cultural, and medicinal became global commodities. Opium, alcohol, tobacco, and later coffee were no longer shaped by ritual or tradition, but by markets and imperial interests. Nowhere was this more visible than in China. British traders exported massive quantities of opium grown in colonial India into China, despite repeated bans. Addiction spread rapidly. Families destabilized. Communities weakened. When Chinese officials attempted to stop the trade, the response was war. Military force was used to protect the right to sell an addictive substance. From this moment on, drugs were no longer personal or communal tools. They became instruments of empire. In the 19th century, science accelerated this transformation. The isolation of active compounds like morphine, cocaine, and heroin was celebrated as medical progress. They were prescribed widely and sold freely. But concentration increased potency, injection accelerated dependence. Addiction was no longer rare, it was industrialized. The modern era split drug culture in two directions: strict prohibition and criminalization on one side, psychedelic exploration and counterculture on the other. LSD reshaped art, psychology, and politics. Cannabis shifted from criminal symbol to medical substance. At the same time, synthetic opioids introduced a new level of risk. These substances are engineered, marketed, and optimized for dependency. They act faster, bind more aggressively to the brain, and overwhelm the body's natural limits. What once unfolded slowly now collapses rapidly. The margin between relief and overdose becomes dangerously thin. Across tens of thousands of years, one pattern remains. Humans seek altered states to heal, to understand, to endure, and to escape. Drugs are not the anomaly. They are a mirror. And understanding this history is not about glorifying substances or ignoring harm. It's about recognizing that our relationship with altered states reflects deeper needs, structures, and pressures. This force shaping human behavior has never disappeared. It has only changed form. And understanding how it works is the first step toward relating to it more consciously. Subscribe and start understanding yourself and the world differently.